So we'll start now module 2, which is for above ground and underground fire water networks, right? So majority of their life for the pipe, right, underground networks or even the above ground networks, the life of the system, there is no flow. When there is a fire, only there will be flow into the system. So most of the time it is the static, no flow condition. However, when there is a fire and then there is an emergency and it should be work properly as per the design, fire protection system can be critically important to the safety of building, right? Building occupants, properties, protection, and continued operation of facilities. For this reason, the piping service interruption must be designed to minimize uh, the interruption and be capable of operating reliability over an extended period of time. So what let's talk about, our fire protection system design for the lifetime, right? For the lifetime of the system. And most of the time there is no flow. So when there is a fire in actual emergency condition and we have the flow, we need water at design flow and pressure as per the design requirement, right? So in those areas, we in those time we need water without any kind of interruption. So we have to be careful regarding the inspection, testing, and maintenance of a fire protection system. To ensure the fire protection system is reliable, right? The building owner and the insurance authorities require those materials constructed in accordance with the recognized standards like ASME, which is for American Society of Mechanical Engineer, ASTM, American Society for Testing Materials, NFPA, UL, and FM. So all those requirements need for the fire protection piping and all in different criteria, right? Like the ASTM gives what is the component classification of the material, what is the specification, what is the type of the material, what is the percentage of the carbon, silicon, manganese, and other kind of the materials based on the requirement. And in this section only, we are mainly limited to the fire protection system, which is talking about protection of the protection of fire protection system, not other kind of the piping which we use in the process and all. These are some of the standards for piping manufacturing of the piping, right? If you can see ASME B16.10M, which is for welded and seamless wrought steel pipe. This is the most common application we are using as a carbon steel power application. The second one we have 1636.19M, which is for a stainless steel pipe. Uh, if there is a stainless steel pipe, those piping should be as for this standard. So if you are purchasing some piping for your project, make sure about the piping manufacturing processor and read the data sheet carefully to completely put those things into your system. So all those standards required at some locations, for our uh, the fire protection system. Here we have ASTM A53, right? This one gives us the specification of our pipe, right? So ASTM will give us a specification to the manufacturing company that you have to use these ingredients, like along with the iron. If normally we take iron from the mining, and if you put carbon into the iron, those iron becomes the carbon steel, right? So without putting those carbon ingredients, or we can say the alloys like carbon, steel, silicon, or chromium, vanadium, for various kind of the properties, we cannot achieve the target requirements. So the pipe manufacturing company have to make their pipes based on this requirement. which is the standard specification for pipe, steel, black and hot dip, zinc coated, welded and seamless. The most common we are using in our fire protection applications. And after that we have STM A106, which is the second most common, and we are using for the high temperature services, most in the deluge valve installed in the process industries. And AWWA C502, which is for the wet barrel fire hydrant, right? American Water Work Associations and American Water Work Association for the dry barrel fire hydrants. Now, these are some of the common equipment we can see in fire protection applications. We have control valves, OSY type gate valve, butterfly PIVs, right? Post indicator valve, valve type PIV, check valve, and backflow prevention device. I know you guys are familiar with this since the beginning of fire protection 1. We discussed this one in fire protection 2 also. So we will be moving quickly over the various parts, right, one by one. We know these are the gate, and in the right side we have the butterfly valve, in the left side we have the gate valve, right? So this one shows that the valve is open, right, because the stem is outside, and here you cannot see stem, it means valve is closed. In the right we have a butterfly valve, right? So the beauty of the butterfly valve is that in some time you don't have enough space into your mechanical room, we can use the butterfly valve instead of the gate valve, because if you can see the distance, space required all the way from here to here is more higher than the space required from this location to this location. So if you don't have problem, if you have problem with the space, better to go with the butterfly valve in those areas. Then we have equipment and device. We have PIVs. We call it the post indicator valve, right? And this PIV should be at least 40 feet away from the building, because in case of the fire department team should control the sprinkler risers from here, so that they will be not affected by the building collapse or damaged. In the right side we have a wall post, right? If you don't have PIV, alternatively we can use the wall post also, right? So it is just like this is inside the buildings, and it is connected all the way from the shaft with a gear, and this gear is connected to this wheel. So if you're turning this wheel, it will turn the gear, and then it will turn the shaft and open the valve. This is how it works. And here we can see the open and shut condition of the valve from the outside. So when PIV the water supply, the post indicator valve control the water supply, they work for the two functions, right? We have two function especially. The first one we have during the ITM procedure, inspection, testing and maintenance. If we want to close the line, we can close it from the post indicator valve. And the second function is that if the control valve got the system down in fire situation, suppose when there is a fire, right, and fire got out of control, and those fire opened so many sprinkler heads that the water supply pressure at the hydrant has dropped below the fire department requirement. Any of this incident would create a loss of fire protection water, not direct toward the extinguishing the fire, right? So this loss caused decreased pressure and volume at the fire hydrant, and that seriously damaged the firefighting criteria, right? So maybe the sprinkler system didn't control the fire, and fire grows, and it break more than 40 or 50 sprinklers. Now it cannot control the fire because there will be no enough water flow and pressure at those areas. So if the fire department team arrive at the site and it is connected to the public water supply line, they will just connect their fire hose, their trucks to the fire hydrant, and from their trucks they will just supply the water to fight the fire, right? In those conditions, if the sprinkler system is open, they have to close this one. They cannot go inside the building to close because building is already under fire. It is not safe to go inside the building. So they can just close the PIB from at least 40 feet away from the building to minimize any loss of the life. We have two devices. We have a check valve of the types. We have a wafer type check valve and the swing check valve. This one we can use most common in the fire pumps unit, right? And somewhere we to avoid the backflow. Both of the valve will avoid the backflow, right? But the second one you can see most common sometimes in fire department connection, right? So if you don't want to use this one, we can go with the wafer type of the check valve. And then we have a backflow prevention device when we have to when we supply from the city water line and we don't want the non-potable water mixed with the potable water and causing some problem with the fire protection equipment. We have to use backflow prevention device. We discuss into fire protection one. This is the same as that. And then we have equipment and access. In the left we have a dry barrel and in the right we have wet barrel, right? So in dry barrel normally water is at the bottom line below the frost line where water will not freeze in type of the freezing. So if you want to take the water from this hydrant, you have to open this one from the top. If you have to open the nut, and once the nut open, it will come out and the water will go inside the barrel. We can in that way we can get water from these areas. This is for the freezing condition and this is for the normal condition. Now moving on all the way to the hydrant spacing, right? How to space those hydrant. Normally, it's been based on the requirement of the hazard, right? What is the hazardous areas classifications of those of plant. Based on that, we have to put hydrant. Normally, in the administration support, utilities, and tankage areas, we have to put hydrant at around 90 meters, right? Maybe it should be between 90 meters all the way to 120 meter also. Normally, in the administration area, support, utilities, and tankage area, they used to put between the hydrants a distance of 95 meters. If you are going to the process areas where much of the process is taking place with highly hazardous materials, oil or gas, and if there is fire in those areas, the fire will release so much quantity of water. We need hydrant, more number of hydrant to open at the same time and fight the fire in those areas. So in the normal administration area, support and tankage we should place within 90 meters. In the process area, we can keep between 45 to 60 meters based on our requirement. The minimum distance from the hydrant to the protected building should be 12 meters and the maximum should be 75 meters, not more than that. The classification of hydrant as per NFPA 291. NFPA 291 is the standard for hydrant marking and classification. NFPA 291 says that 5.1 of NFPA 291 says hydrants should be classified as in accordance with their rated capacity at 20 psi residual pressure, the one we discussed, right? Or other design value as follows. These are the some marking. Class the AA means the capacity is 1500 GPM or higher. A means between 1000 GPM to 1500 GPM. B means 500 to 1999 GPM, and class C means less than 500 GPM. So these are the requirement of NF 291, and based on that we have to do the marking for the hydrants, the color code and all requirement. So for the marking of hydrants, NFPA 291 says that for the public hydrant means it is outside the boundary of any private properties. The municipality, You can see around the Royal Commission area, those are the public areas. So there should be on those hydrants. So all barrels are to be chrome yellow color, right? In cases, except in cases where another color has already been updated, right, adopted. So now it is a requirement of authorities having this lesson how it's doing, but most of the time, if there is a hydrant in the public line, this should painted with the chrome yellow, and the tops and the nozzles, right? The tops and the nozzle caps of the hydrant should be painted with the following color, right? So that someone can identify that what is the flow available from each hydrant, right? Class A means light blue, class A means green, class B means orange, and class C means red. So these are the color criteria based on NFPA 291. But this is for the public hydrant, right? For the private hydrant, NFPA 291 5.2.1.8 says marking on private hydrant within private enclosure is to be done by owner decisions. Now, this is based to the owner. Like if inside the SABIC, it is the responsibility of the SABIC fire department team to mark the color of the hydrant based on their requirement, or maybe in some Mardin or some Aramco facilities. Now it is up to them because it's the private properties of them. So they have this is how we have to distinguish between the public hydrant and the private hydrants. So what is the hose outlet and the pumper connection, right? Most of the hydrants should have two connections of 2.5 inch, right, and one 4 inch pumper connection, right? Those pumper connections should be provided with the gate valve, NRS type gate valve, and so a flange of 4.5 inch NST male hose connection should be there with cap and chain. Normally, if this is your hydrant, right? So this is one connection of 2.5 inch. This is another connection of 2.5 inch, and there is one bigger connection. We call it the pumper connection, which is around 4 inch in size, and this should face the side. Should be facing the street side, so that it is for the fire pump department. Firefighting department. They will connect their hose into this and take the water from the hydrant or for any other kind of the purpose. So why we call it the pumper connection. Moving on to the hose houses and equipment, right? So uh, normally in the facilities, in the private facilities, right? If there are hydrant loops around that, there is a underground water loops, and there is different hydrant at different locations. This is the hydrant one, the second one, this is the third one, this is the fourth one, and this is the fifth, and so on. So how to, nearby the hydrant, we have to put the hose cabinet, right? Hose houses or the hose equipment, which contains of the hose reels, the nozzles, the wrench, and all kind of those things to use in case fire, something like this one, right? This is a hose box just placed nearby. This is just placed nearby the fire department, fire hydrant, and at least we need for two hydrants one hose box. For two or three hydrants, not more than that. For two or three hydrants, we need one fire hose box, right? So the quantity and type of hose and equipment shall depend on the following requirement, right? So what is the quantity of hose equipment based on the number of location of hydrant relative to the protected properties, extend to the hazards and firefighting capability of potential users, right? Those who is handling those fire hose cabinet and all, he have what is their potential to use those equipment in case of the fire. Normally, the best practice is that they used to install for two or three hydrants one number of fire hose cabinet. Each fire hose cabinet shall be located to serve 2 to 3 fire hydrants, right? So better to be in the range of maximum 3 hydrants, right? And a minimum of clear space of 15 feet required in front of the every hose reel, right? So if this is our fire hose cabinet, the front side we should have at least 50 feet clear space to lay down our hose and fight the power in those areas. In some case, in the process facilities, a live hose reel shall be minimum of 7.5 25 feet from the equipment being protected. Now they are talking about the process area where we cannot go so near to the fire to fight the fire in those areas because we have uh, high hazardous process taking place with the gas, liquid, and all kind of the chemicals. So for the safety, we have 25 feet criteria. And now sometimes, for the industry, we have the fire monitors also. So those fire monitors protect fire hazards shall be located such that the area being protected will be reached by at least 2 monitors. What they are talking exactly that suppose this is your process area, then we have some storage vessel, right? Some highly hazardous storage vessels. Some of the some of those companies like Sabic or Aramco's, those required this pressure vessels should be at least protected from three sides by the fire monitors. So if there is a fire, they can use these monitors or maybe this one or maybe this one all together at same time to fight the fire. To fight the fire in case of the worst condition. If our deluge system is not able to cool this system, this equipment, so it should be available from 2 or 3 sides in case of the fighting the fire from the monitors. This is one of the example for monitors, right? This is our fire monitors, and this is the automatic one, right? This is the automatic one, right? This is connected to this monitor cabinet. Monitor control, we have a monitor control. We have a sensing lines all the way from this one. So based on the control, it will rotate into this direction, and it will rotate up and down based on the requirement of NFPA for making those kind of the monitor shall be capable of 360 degree of horizontal motions, right? So and 90 degree of vertical motions, 75 degree above the horizontal and 15 degree below the horizontal. What they're saying exactly, this should rotate all the way to 360 degrees, right? We can rotate in any direction without any problem. And the second criteria they talks regarding the vertical motions in the 90 degrees should be 75 degree above horizontal and 50 degree below horizontal. It means that if this is the base, right? Ground load level, and this is your uh, monitors, right? It should be about 75 degree into the top directions, right? And 50 degree below this one. So if this is it will go all the way to 75 degree up to the top and 50 degree below that one. So that we can rotate the monitor based on the fire. If the fire is at the top, we can monitor at the top. If the fire is at the bottom, we can monitor it at the bottom one to fight the fire. Most of the time, the manufacturer of the monitor's nozzle says that your monitor can be reach to fight a fire between 25 meter to 30. They will give some range, but if you don't have range like that, we can space our monitor something like in between 25 to 35-meter distance. Here we have a hydrant mounted monitor. This is our fire hydrant, right? This is our fire hydrant, and it is hydrant mounted monitor nozzles. So it will work as a combination of the monitor also and the combination of the fire hose combination. We can see we have two connections, 2.5 inch, right? At the top we have a reducers, and we have a flange, gate valve, and the monitors. So the connecting parts between hydrant and monitor shall have following equipment, talking from the top of the hydrant to the base of the monitors, right? We have a 6-inch class 150 welded neck flange. This is the first one, right? 6-inch class 150 flange, and then we have a reducer of 6-inch by 4-inch. After that, we have a 4-inch ball valve to close the monitors in most of the cases, and just to open the monitor when we require to get water from this one. So we have a ball valve connections, and then we have a 4-inch flanges, and then it is connected to our monitor nozzle. We have a monitor nozzle as theirs, and this is the handle of the nozzles. Based on this handle, we can rotate it in 360 degree, or we can rotate into 90 degree, 75 degree upwards, or 75 degrees from those in the below direction. So any questions so far? I think you guys, what I see this in this lecture, most of the guys are totally silent. Either you are catching all the point. Yes.
Yeah, for me, all the points are clear.
Ahmad,
Me too.
Muhammad Al Hazri, Muhammad Jaber, Saud Al Rawaze, and Jaki. Mr. Saud?
Clear, yeah. Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the next one, we have, right, how to select the underground piping for firefighting system applications, right? So selection of piping for underground fire water networks depends on several considerations. We have to do complete evaluation of the soil condition. What is the condition of the soil, the maximum working pressure, and the external load, something like in heavy traffic areas. We have also some underground networks, how to overcome those situations, right? Fire protection water mains must be capable of withstanding the load, sometimes much severe load, right? And conditions associated with fire protection system are, when you are designing your fire protection system, designing your pipe, we have to give more consideration on those requirements, right? Like what is the fire pump pressure surges? Suddenly, sometimes pressure goes higher into the fire protection system, right? So, is your piping is able to withstand those pressure? Suppose water is moving from this side and suddenly some valve closed, right? And the valve closed within 5 seconds, it will damage the piping. So, is those kind of the surges can be withstand by this piping? We have to keep that one. We have to keep in mind the hose stream operations and deluge system operation. Normally, the fire protection system in the starting condition, and when there is a fire, deluge valve active. Now, when deluge valve activate, complete nozzle are open in the deluge valve. The high flow will cause the pressure surge into the system. So for that, if it is listed, right? If someone close the valve suddenly, right, as for the different research studies, we cannot close the any kind of the opening valve, any kind of the gate valve or control valve within 5 seconds. So minimum time we need 5 seconds to rotate the handles, right? We cannot go more than that one. Otherwise, it might be problem with the fire protection system. Cast iron, ductile iron, steel, and asbestos cement underground piping do not carry EWL listing or FM marking. So the piping, like the ferrous pipings, the cast iron, the asbestos one, or the cement one, they don't need any kind of the EWL listing or FM approvals, but they should be as manufactured for ASTM and ASME required. The table we discussed in the beginning. If we are using plastic pipe or RTR pipe or maybe the GRP pipe, we have to see for the listing of those fire protection equipment.
So, Mr. Rabi, the RTR, for example, or FRP lines, it need to be UL listed and FM approved?
Yeah, those plastics pipe should need UL listed or FM approved kind of the approvals. So what is the underground pipe types, right? We have water-based fire protection system. Components shall be designed for a maximum working pressure of 175 psi, right? At that condition, we have to use extra heavy fittings, something around 250 pound or 300 pound valve and devices at those locations. We are now going to discuss regarding the different type of the pipes, right? We'll start from the cast iron pipe. For a standard system, right? For the cast iron pipe, standard system working pressure below 175 psi. Underground cast iron and ductile iron pipe rated as class 150 is most common specified. So if you are using the cast iron pipe, class 150 is most common found in our applications. So normally these ratings are normally cast into the valve bodies. If you have some cast iron valve, on those valves they put the stamps, right? So what is the working pressure of the system? And then we have a ductile iron pipe, right? Ductile means ductility. We can bend it easily. If a material is more brittle, means it will glass. If you drop a glass, it will break easily because uh, glass is a brittle materials. Or even the tiles we used or the equipment we used in our heaters, those are the brittle material example. If you try to hit with the hammer, it will break easily. But the ductile pipe, the more we hammer, the more it will expand up to the last bottleneck point, right? So more flexible than cast iron, right? So ductile iron pipe will bend constantly, or it will fail at some at some pressure, right? So it will more better than the cast iron pipe. And the most common example for ductile iron pipe is that we can use this one in the heavy vehicular traffic areas, something below the road or in the street areas where there are high load anticipated due to the traffic of the signals, right? Traffic of the car, trucks, and those areas. We can use the ductile iron pipe. If you are using the cast iron pipe in those areas, right? The cast iron pipe, as I say, it is more brittle material. It might crack or rupture due to the high load of the trucks, bus, and all at the signals or the trafficking area. So better to go with the ductile iron pipe in all the public water supply lines as a better safety factors. Then we are going for the steel pipe, underground piping. Most of the time, we don't have to install the steel pipe into the underground piping network because of the corrosion condition. But at some case, if you want to use a steel pipe, it might be a little bit of the costly. If steel pipe used for buried fire mains, right? We're using welded joint. We have to coat the pipe. We have to coating the pipe, coated and wrapped, right? And even with this corrosion precautions, the corrosion factor of the steel pipe is a major concern. If you are installing pipe inside the underground in our locations with the coating and wrapping material also, it will corrode much faster than the other kind of the materials. Right. So if it is necessary to bury a dry pipe system, right, the use of steel pipe with welded steam and drainage is the only means of retaining the compressed air without excessive loss. Normally, if you want to minimize the loss of the compressed air in the dry pipe system, we have to go with the steel pipe only. In those areas, we have to be careful regarding the freezing condition and all. Now we have GRP pipe, right? This pipe should be manufactured as per ANSI or AWWA requirement, American Water Work Association, right? And this is most common application in underground firewater networks for large size of the pipe. GRP is a resin-based composite that reinforced with a glass fiber, and the composite is made of two components: glass fiber and the resins. And we have the available pressure ratings for the GRP pipe starting from 50 psi all the way to 250 psi, right? And the length of the pipe we can get from 3 meters to 80-meter lengths. Based on our project requirement, we can go along with that. Now we have a FRP pipe, fiber reinforced plastic pipe, right? FRP is similar to GRP. FRP is similar to GRP. Is a plastic based. Yeah, Ahmed. FRP is similar to GRP. Is
Yes,
a
I was
plastic.
asking.
Yeah.
I was asking if this is cheaper than the cast iron, if we can use it.
The FRP and GRP, right? Yeah.
Yes. What about the cost?
This will be cheaper than the cheaper than the ductile iron. Cast iron, most of the time, no, they are not using it for the fire protection system, but maybe they have used in the old installation, maybe 50 years back. But now they are mainly going with the ductile iron pipe and FRP GRP applications. If you have a heavy vehicle area, we have to go with the ductile iron, not with the FRP or GRP. And if you are installing it inside the facilities like Sabic and Aramco's or Mardin, in those areas they are installing mainly GRP or FRP pipe for the long service of the pipe. So it is cheaper than the ductile iron, but we cannot use this in heavy vehicular area. Forget about the cast iron pipe, which is most uncommon one into the underground firewater networks.
Mr. Rabi,
Yeah.
could we use, for example, a combination between the type of pipes, for example, in road cross, for example, cross sections or wherever there is heavy traffic, we can use, for example, ductile iron and the remaining FRP. So can we mix the types for the same network?
Yeah, this is a sound engineering principle. If you want to mix those kind of the arrangement, normally there is some problem. First, we have to make sure that the pipe rating of these two products is the same, and the one pipe joining with another pipe at those connection, there might be some cathodic reactions, anodic and cathodic reaction. Maybe some of the material going from the steel pipe to the other pipes, and maybe it will coming back. It will damage some of the extent of those material at that locations, causing the corrosion at all at faster rate. So we have some arrangement for that one. We have to make sure that the cathodic or anodic reaction doesn't take place at the joint between two dissimilar metals.
Okay, so it is possible to mix.
Yeah, you can mix, but at the joint you have to use some special kind of the techniques so that there might not be any kind of the anodic or cathodic reactions.
Okay.
But
Because
again,
anyhow, if you use, for example, the FRP line underground,
uh,
anyhow, at the hydrant side or the monitors or whatever riser, we have to get the transition to the
to the
metallic.
steel pipe, yeah, steel pipe, yes, for the length of the piping, we
Exactly.
have to
So,
go there.
but those transition of material between non-metallic to metallic,
No
the,
problem. There will
okay.
be no problem. But it should be metallic to metallic with different materials, then there will be problem with those reactions.
Oh, okay.
So GRP, what is the advantage of using the composite application for GRP or FRP piping, right? If you are coming for this, the weight of the piping, right? Steel is 1/4 of the weight of, it is 1/4 of the steel weight. So if your steel weight for 1 meter is around 10 kg, it will be only around 2.5 kg for the FRP or GRP pipe. Slow operating and maintenance cost for this kind of the pipe compared to those one, and higher corrosion resistance. We have advantage of the corrosion, right? So those metallic pipe will corrode easily, but this plastic pipe and all, they have higher corrosion resistance, and they have a smooth surface also compared to the metallic piping. So we have less friction loss compared to that. Coming to the PVC pipe, we can see when we talk about the PVC, we only talk about the most common application in plumbing works, plumbing or utilities works. But we can use the PVC pipe in the fire protection work also, but not exactly PVC. The material is the PVC. We have to use some kind of the chemicals to make this pipe to work at higher pressures. We call it urinated polyvinyl chloride. Sorry, unplasticized polyvinyl chloride. So UPVC pipe, you can find this kind of the application in underground fire water networks, mainly in this is much less costly than all those piping, FRP, GRP, ductile, and all. It's very cheaper, right? PVC you can find at very cheap price. So we can see some of the temporary camps, not the permanent one, or some of the with small warehouses areas or small factories, a small office area, they use the UPVC pipe in the underground piping location because of the cheap cost of this one, right? So we can use the UPVC pipe in those areas, mainly in underground fire water applications. And this is available in Schedule 40 and 80 as per STM D1785 of those specifications. And this is the cheaper than all the pipe, if you can say, in the underground installation, even in the above ground also. Then we have CPVC pipe, right? So CPVC pipe we can use, sometimes we are using the CPVC pipe. It is a chlorinated polyvinyl chloride, right? We just chlorinate the PVC materials with this special material to make it work at high temperature in the sprinkler system, right? CPVC is a special form of PVC which has been chlorinated in order to make its chlorine content high and to improve its heat resistant properties. Normally, if you are using this one into the light hazard occupancy in sprinkler system, in above ground piping, we can use the CPVC pipe in the light hazard occupancies only, not in the ordinary hazard or extra hazard occupancies. Something like single or residential duplexes or mobile homes, and mostly in the light hazard commercial use, maybe in hospital, school, and long care facilities and high-rise residential building. And it is highly corrosion resistance material, right? Because the PVC pipe, the corrosion will be not as much like steel pipe, and again, it is cheaper. Now, this CPVC pipe or UPVC pipe, which is used for fire protection application, should be approved by UL or FM or some independent approved body to use into the applications. So we have the requirement of pipe laying, right? As for NFPA 24, 10.7 talks about the pipe laying requirement, right? So if you are burying your piping inside underground, in most of the spaces, in the general spaces, should be at least below 0.8 meters of the ground level. If it is under the road in the traffic area, should be at least around 0.9 meters. And if it is around a railway track, right, railroad tracks where high load is acceptable, in those areas we can bury it at least 1.2 meters. Only they are talking about the damage of the pipe due to the heavy weight of the vehicles and all which is moving around those areas. Twenty-four 10.9 talks about the bag filling. You know, if you are laying your pipe, how to lay your pipe, or what should be the material or concrete or special material you have to put around the pipes to make the pipe, to prevent the pipe settlement or lateral movement, right? And it might be some kind of the small materials we have to put in those areas to keep our pipe in exact condition, not moving around those areas. And then we have the thrust block. I think we discussed into the fire protection also. We are going to discuss it again. When there is a change in the flow, right, at the T, at the bend, at the elbow, at the risers, when there is a change in flow, we need thrust block. Tremendous thrusts are created in buried pipe where the pipe changes direction due to the pressure surge in the fire protection underground piping when flow is started or stopped. Normally when there is flow started to begin, there is a force at the end of the turnings. Here we have a T, we have a thrust block. Here we have an elbow, we have a thrust block. So we have to keep it at the place where we have a changes in here.
The thrust block, regardless of the material of the piping, right?
Yeah,
Metallic,
regardless of the
thrust block should be provided.
yeah, thrust block should be provided to protect this one. And in NFPA 24, we have the calculations, formulas, and all values we have to use for those applications. Now moving on to the above ground piping, right? So most of the piping used in the above ground fire protection is the steel, which is more than 90% of the installation. So in 90% of the case, we are using steel as fire protection piping, right? So steel piping for fire sprinkler system must be water-based. For water-based fire protection system must be listed for its service or exceed the requirement of one of the following. Listed means not the listed by the UL or FM. They are talking about the piping manufacturer as for those requirements, ASTM A53 or ASTM 153 or all those requirements. All right. Normally for the above ground piping, we are using in most of the case ASTM A53, you know, for our applications. NFPA 13 provide the wall thickness, right? The wall, what should be the thickness of the pipe? We call it the schedule. Schedule 10, schedule 20, schedule 40. Schedule 40 is the most common one, which is very much, which is more than enough for a pressure of 175 psi. When we are talking about the schedule, we are talking about the thickness. When we are talking about the thickness, we are talking about how much pressure this pipe can hold, right? And at the same time, if there is a corrosion into the piping, maybe after 10 years or 20 years, if the thickness is high, there might be no chance for any leakage into those piping areas. Half of the sprinkler system piping we use today as steel piping, which is half of that is normally is the threaded, you know. So most of the sprinkler piping is the threaded, something like 2 inch or below we use the threaded connection, and higher than that we are using the groove cut groove mechanical fittings. The groove fitting which we have a standard available in the market, just groove the piping and the ready-made coupling is coming, just put into that, and It is very easy and cost effective also based on the installation cost. With the gaseous suppression system like FM200, CO2, NOVAC, and all those we discussed in our previous module, those systems require high pressure, sometimes 24 psi, sometimes 48 psi, sometimes maybe 100 psi or maybe more than that. Sorry, not psi, I was talking in the bar, 24 bar, 48 bars, or maybe 100 higher than 50 bars. So in those areas, we need the piping of high pressure rating so that it can withstand that one. We can also use the stainless steel piping or copper also for fire protection equipment or for the gaseous system. But still, stainless steel and copper is costly solution for the sprinkler system. Yes, we can use for the gaseous system in those areas. But if you are using for the sprinkler system, it is allowed, but it's a little bit of costly than the common one. And if you are using the copper tube for the water-based fire suppression system, it shall be as per ASTM B75 or ASTM B88. And the thickness should be as per class K, L, or M for fire protection applications. Now moving on to the pipe joining, right? There are several methods of joining the above ground pipe. Right, we have steel pipe with sufficient wall thickness may be joined using threaded connections. You know, if you want to thread a pipe at the end of the pipe to join, we need higher thickness. Schedule 5 thickness, schedule 5 is very less thickness, so if you cannot do threading. So for threading, we need at least a pipe of, for schedule 40, we have good threading capabilities. There is no problem with us, there is no problem for that one. So most of the time, as I said, 50% of the sprinkler system piping are for the threaded connection, and the remaining one, the grouped one, or maybe the welded type, as per the requirement of the projects. Mechanical coupling have become a popular method, right? A most common methods for joining above ground fire suppression system piping. Mechanical coupling are assembled of clamps, gaskets, and bolt coming as a ready-made coupling. Just cut the groove into the piping and put into the pipe and fix it at the site. Take a very less time. Using the mechanical couplings, avoid you getting all those approvals and procedure for the welding, right? If you have worked from the project in Aramco or Sabic, they have lots of requirement, the WPR or the welding procedure requirement, and all those things will be a little bit time taking and costly compared to the grouped coupling and all. Now those couplings should be listed by FM or those global, right? Working pressure, temperature, rigidity of the system, need, and external internal load should always be investigated when considering mechanical joining methods like the group coupling and all. There are two types of the mechanical group couplings. We have the flexible one and we have a rigid one. If you guys remember, we discussed into the fire protection design that if your pump suction and the fire water supply tank suction at the same line, and if you are connecting these two pipeline on different foundation, we must use a expanded coupling, regular movement of the piping without harming the pipe. So flexible coupling will work in the same way, right? That is a flexible coupling, and defined as that permit axial displacement, rotation, and at least 1 degree of angular movement, right? It will remove 1 degree of the pipe from the center line of the pipe, and it will protect the pipe to getting damaged due to some settlement of the pipe by time to time. Rigid coupling do not support those kind. Rigid coupling do not support those kind of requirements. Now, when you are designing the piping system, right? When you're designing your piping system, we have to emphasize more on these points, right? What is the fire system demand? What is the flow, right? What is the building locations, economic constraint, reliability, water supply source, pressure, and environmental conditions. When we're talking about the economics, suppose if your project is just a temporary project, temporary camps, or maybe it's like a low budget project, you want to save your money, you can go with the UPVC pipe for the underground installation. It's much more cheaper than all other kind of the solutions, right? And if there might be some high design pressure requirement, right? So we have to go with some kind of the plastics pipe of the higher pressure ratings. Environmental condition, the corrosive environment. If you are working around the Madain phosphate plant, the corrosion is present in all the atmosphere and those areas. So we have to be emphasized regarding the corrosion criteria in those areas. Based on the location also, we have to put that on. So how much flow is going for the pipe, right? Uh, Suppose this is your pipe of some 6 inch. Let's say this is your pipe of 6 inch, and if you are flowing 1500 GPM for 6 inch pipe, it is not possible. It will possible, but we need a pump with high pressure requirement. We know the basic formula: the flow equals to area into velocity. So if the area is less and we are forcing more water to go inside the piping, as for the continuity equations we discussed into the hydraulics, right? We need high pressure to overcome those friction resistance due to the high velocity. We have to keep those things in the mind. So all those parameters we have to keep in our mind for designing the fire water piping. We have to make sure regarding the maximum working pressure of a fire protection equipment, right? And when selecting the type and class of pipe to be used, maybe 175 is the most common in the water-based fire protection system, except the stand pipe system. A stand pipe system sometimes work up to 24 bar or maybe higher because of the height of the building. These are special case; those we have to consider. But in most of the cases for underground networks, we need 150 psi, and for the above ground in the sprinkler system piping, 175 is more than enough for our design basis. If we have a pressure reducing valve, which are intended to protect components from both high static and flowing pressures. So normally, sometimes they have to use pressure reducing valve at the building. If the building height is more than the normal one, if it is around 40 or 50 floor and we more pressure, maybe 24 bar or higher than that, maybe 40 bars. So we need pressure reducing valve in those conditions in some zones. Remember, we discussed into the fire pumps regarding the churn pressure condition, right? So we are evaluating the impact of the fire pump on the pressure requirement. We have to make sure regarding the discharge pressure at the setup condition, right? So it is 140% of the rated pressure, which is if your pump is rated for 150 psi, 140 will be. Suppose your pump is rated for 140 psi, right? So if at the 140%, it will cross 175 psi, right? It will cross 175 psi requirement. So those areas need a pipe of high pressure rating. So this one we have to keep in mind.
Can you again explain the last point?
The pressure rating of the fire pump, right?
Yeah, for the maximum pressure.
We know when fire pumps are rated for the 100% ratings, right, which is 100% pressure and flow. They are rated for overload condition, which is 1500, which is 1.5 times of the rated capacity, and at 65% flow. Sorry, 65% pressure. And the last one, it is rated for churn condition, which is 140% of the rated pressure. In case of the churn, you have to just close the discharge valve and make you run your pump at some high speed. When there is no flow from the discharge line, the pump is continuous running and it is adding energy to the fluid and the pressure is getting higher. So it shall not be higher than 40% of the pump rating. So if your pump is rated for, let's say, 100 psi, at 140% your pump is giving 140% of the speed, which is around 140 psi, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and just let me go to the blackboard.
So, just what you mean, for example, the maximum pressure, which is zero flow or the shear pressure,
Yeah,
if it is exceeding the 175 psi, then
yeah,
all our system and piping and everything should be at a higher pressure, whatever
yeah,
the
yeah,
pressure.
yeah, exactly. We don't need more than 175 psi to our fire protection system. We have to keep that in the mind.
Yeah, but if the system already or the pump is already at a higher pressure rating,
We have
then
to, if the pump is at higher pressure ratings, we have to put the setting into the controller that the pump will start at this much pressure and it will stop at the 160 psi or 175 psi. So the pump will work accordingly. And if the pressure goes higher than that, we have the pressure relief valve for the diesel pump and for the variable speed electrical pumps. So this will not allow to go higher pressure into the fire protection system.
okay.
So NFPA 13 says they need minimum 7 psi at most remote sprinklers, right? For exact water profile and the flow requirement based on the demand. This is the minimum one for the standard spray sprinklers. But sometimes, some of the high storage fire, like in the ESFR sprinkler or control mode specific application sprinklers, those are the specially listed sprinklers that may need a pressure up to around 75 psi from one sprinkler while working. So we have to keep in mind what is the type of the sprinkler and what is our application, right? NFPA 15 says, which is for deluge water spray system, they need minimum 30 psi for the spray nozzles, which is in water spray deluge system. Here we have one table which says that what is the minimum residual pressure required for different fire protection equipment. 100 psi is the maximum one. We need the residual pressure for the different equipment. Like for the monitors, 100 psi. For the hose reel, 100 psi. For the hydrant, we need 100 psi. For the deluge nozzles, they said 25 psi. And for the spray nozzles, 30 psi, and so on for all those kind of the applications.
So, Mr. Rabi, here just to make it further clear, the residual pressure here, for example, for a hydrant is 100 psi.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
So whatever, if I'm operating the hydrant at the full load,
It will
then
give us 100 psi.
the system should be 100 psi.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Even not for the sprinkler also, we only want to know the correct effectiveness of our fire protection system, which can be only just when water has started flowing. So at that condition, we need this much pressure.
Yeah, but for example, if we have a hydrant here,
Yeah.
the hydrant flow will be for sure much higher than any sprinkler system.
Yeah, exactly. Around 250, around 500 GPM or 250 GPM. So at that flow, we need this much.
Yeah, the hydrant mainly will be much higher. Even some of the hydrant as per the rating that you earlier we discussed. For example, some of them above the 2000 GPM.
Yeah, above 2000 GPM. Yes, exactly.
So at that much of flow and this residual pressure 100 psi, that
This
means
table, this table I have taken, this table I have taken from some of the front end engineering design for some of the project in maybe some Mardin or the project specification for the Mardin and all. So that are the private facilities. So in that, I think this is more than enough. Those they are talking about 2000 GPM, maybe that is for public hydrant in the high dense area.
but even the chemical processing plants and all these, they are using a lot of hydrants with the high capacity actually.
So they have their own requirement. They have to set down the what is the requirement for the those design flow. It should be as for the this 100 psi is more than enough to give us the flow something like 1000 GPM or 500 GPM without any problem.
Okay.
More normally there are 2.5 inch connection only. So from 2.5 inch connection they can take only 250 GPM from one, right? So they want to discharge the water at least 30 meter high, 20 to 30 meter distance from this one. So they want high pressure to reach the fire area.
Yeah, clear.
And now the pipe velocity, coming to the velocity into the pipe, the maximum velocity in the firefighting piping as for NFPA 20 is 6.1 meter per second. Now when I talk about NFPA 20, I am only talking about, this is our fire pumps and this is our discharge line and this is our suction line. So only 10x diameter, right? 10 times of the diameter this side and 10 times of diameter this side. So normally after the isolation valve, this in the discharge side, NFPA 20 doesn't care about the velocity and all. So NFPA said within this limit I want 6.1 meter per second into the discharge side, and he further reduced to 4.5 meter per second into the suction line to avoid the turbulence and causing some of the cavitation into the pump. But NFPA 13 says they don't care about the limiting the maximum velocity into the fire into their sprinkler system. But some of the insurance company have given the limitation. The problem is that if you have the maximum velocity in your piping, we need high pressure to discharge water into the sprinkler, because here the velocity, the higher the friction through the wall of the pipe. So there will be high frictional resistance. So they have not limited that any kind of a limitation in NFPA 13, but they said recommended to keep the velocity in the normal normal velocity range so that there might be no frictional losses. So being a designer, we have to try to put the velocity something around 4 to 6 meters in between. The lowest the velocity, the best solution, but we have to keep something around less than or something like 5 to 6 meters per second into the piping.
So here, Mr. Rabi, to manage the velocity in this portion, in the suction and discharge of the pump, we just have to follow whatever the NFPA 20 table for
the table, exactly, the table
size, right?
Yes, you follow the table 4.28 of NFPA 20, which says that what is the discharge size and the suction side, the velocity will be not going higher than that. Okay, you just have to follow that one.
And that until the first isolation valve, right?
Yeah, the first isolation valve or within 10x diameter. Because after that is the requirement of the underground fire water networks, or maybe if it is above ground for the sprinkler system. So from that they will follow the NFPA 13 or NFPA 24 or 14, whatever it is going to those areas.
Clear.
The pipe velocity, pressure and flow shall be sized and checked in listed hydraulic calculation software. Normally, if you perform the calculation in the software, they will give you those velocity, pressure, and the diameter, everything at each location. So every node you will get what is the velocity in that one. And maybe in some node the velocity will be much more higher than the common one. If you want to minimize that one, in those nodes just increase the diameter of the pipe to one higher size. So by doing that one, we can decrease the velocity and keep things in the normal range. When velocity increases, pressure loss increases, right? When velocity goes higher, pressure loss will be higher, right? We discussed this formula into our hydraulics. Flow equals to velocity into area, because velocity and flow are directly related to increase or decrease in one will result in the same of the others, right? So if one go higher, the other go down. If other goes down, the one will go higher. But the flow should be exact the same due to the continuity of the flow. The flow will be the same at all locations. The Hagen-Williams C factors, the C value we discussed into the previous modules, which is for the sprinkler system, is the same as that one, right? And then the last one we have to keeping more emphasis on the source of water supply and the freezing condition and the corrosive condition, right? From where we are getting the waters, what is the source of those water supply, what is the corrosion requirement of those one, if it is a highly corrosive pipe or if it is a less corrosive piping, what is the freezing condition, right? If there is a freezing temperature is there, we have to use piping. If it is underground, we have to lay the piping below the frost line, so that there will be no freezing of water in that one. If your piping is running above ground, we have to keep in mind, if those freezing are more severe, we can use antifreeze solutions, right, to avoid the dry pipe system installation. Or if it's a large area, we have to go with the dry pipe system. We have to keep in mind regarding the temperature condition we are normally getting in those areas based on different requirement. And here we came.